At 5:01 local time, the forward gun mount on the U.S. Navy destroyer lets out a low mechanical hum as it shifts 5 degrees to starboard. The movement is slow, precise, almost deliberate. Steel slides into place. A boatswain's mate on the forecastle stops mid-step. Up on the bridge, nobody raises their voice. Condition 3. Key stations manned and ready. Out on open water, the visibility is clear and the sea is calm, leaving nowhere for anything to hide. Then the radar picture changes. A surface contact flashes sharply onto the scope, bearing 243, range 8 nautical miles, closing fast. 26 knots. Too fast, too direct, too committed to be ordinary traffic. This vessel isn't drifting across the water by chance. It's driving a line with purpose. Inside the Combat Information Center, tracks settle into place as the system refines the silhouette. Hull length, superstructure, profile, nothing about it matches routine commercial movement. Its projected course cuts across the destroyer's path with near-perfect precision. Closest point of approach updates again and again. 7 miles. 6. The number keeps falling with cold, quiet certainty. Contact accelerating, the watch officer says evenly. The bridge stays calm. The ship maintains course and speed. That is the standard. You do not react first, you let the numbers speak. Long-range optics swing into position and lock on. The image sharpens. Gray paint. Low freeboard. A forward deck crowded with equipment. No visible flag from this angle, no sign of a heading change. Between the two ships, the water is empty, just a narrowing strip of blue. The first bridge-to-bridge hail goes out on the international frequency. Brief, professional. No answer. 5 nautical miles. Electronic support measures come alive, passive at first, simply listening. The log begins to fill with timestamps, bearings, emissions. Everything is recorded, everything preserved. On the bridge, the captain watches the data, not the horizon. Intent is measured in vectors, not words. Second hail. The message is repeated. Same result. Silence. At 4 miles, the contact's wake stretches longer behind it. Speed rises again, now 30 knots, pressing hard for a steel hull. On the display, the line tightens further. This is not a vessel shadowing in parallel. This is a direct intercept. Below deck, doors seal shut with muted thuds. Helm commands remain calm and exact. The destroyer does not break away. A sudden turn now would tell the wrong story in the record. CPA under 3 miles, CIC reports. On the forward deck, the 5-inch gun completes its movement and stops, just enough to be noticed, not enough to look provocative. A message delivered without a sound. Anyone watching through binoculars can read the posture clearly. Ready but restrained. 3 miles. The contact's radar flickers briefly. Surface search, low power. Then another sweep. Not a fire control lock, but active, intentional. The electronic warfare officer marks it and stores the waveform. Another entry in the record. Unidentified surface contact is painting us, CIC reports. The captain gives a single nod. Maintain course. Outside, the distance closes with the quiet certainty of tide against pilings. The sea remains calm, untouched by any sense of urgency. From the bridge wing, sailors can now make out movement on the other ship's deck. Figures near the bow, helmets catching the sunlight. No signals, no gestures, just speed and steel. 2 miles. Time to closest approach drops below 6 minutes. The destroyer's flight deck stirs to life. Green shirts move with practiced efficiency. Tie-downs are checked. The helicopter crew straps in. The aircraft is not there for a strike. It does not need to be. Its presence alone carries weight. The contact stays on course. At 1.5 miles, the geometry turns unforgiving. Any further closure on this vector forces a choice. Port or starboard, slow down or trust a final second that may come too late. The bridge grows even quieter. Every console shows the same reality. There is no confusion here, no uncertainty, only numbers rushing toward a single point. 1 mile, CIC calls. The captain's tone never changes. Log everything. The destroyer holds steady. Bow locked forward. Wake running straight behind her like a line drawn with a ruler. The other ship now fills the optics frame, close enough to make out the angle of the bridge windows and the churn at its bow. Still no radio reply. Still no course change. Seconds begin to stretch. This is the point where outcomes are made or avoided, where intent finally becomes visible without a single word being spoken. The range continues to fall, and then, just before the numbers cross into something that cannot be undone, the picture shifts. Barely. A fractional change in bearing. Less than a degree, but enough to register, enough to matter. The log captures it, the ship holds, the sea holds, and the outcome hangs on that tiny movement. At 5:24 local time, the bearing change becomes clearer. 2 degrees, then 3. On the bridge, it lands like a sentence finally spoken aloud. The contact has not fully turned away. It hasn't slowed. It's adjusting to keep the pressure on. Inside the Combat Information Center, the track history redraws in real time. For a brief moment, the predicted closest point of approach widens, then tightens again as the other ship corrects. Someone on that bridge is working the helm with purpose, matching vectors, staying inside the destroyer's maneuvering space. Contact adjusting to maintain intercept, CIC reports. The destroyer answers with absolute steadiness. Same speed, same course. Discipline over instinct. If you move first, you spend the rest of the day explaining why. If you hold, the other side explains itself for you. Another radar sweep passes over the hull, logged, time-stamped, identified as surface search activity. Still not a weapons-grade lock, but the pattern is clear now. Active, controlled, repeated. This is not casual observation. This is deliberate measurement. The captain leans closer to the display. Helm steady as she goes. A third hail is transmitted. Same wording, same measured tone. Standard international procedure. No provocation, no theatrics, no response. At less than a mile, the sea offers almost no forgiveness. Hydrodynamics begin to take over. Wake interaction matters now. A sudden turn by either ship could send unpredictable force across both bows. That is how ships make contact. That is how incidents become front-page news. On the forecastle, sailors brace against the rail, eyes fixed ahead. The other ship's hull is now impossible to mistake. Gray against gray, with no visible attempt to communicate. Its bow wave cuts hard through the water, white spray boiling outward as it holds above 28 knots. Inside CIC, the tactical picture tightens further. CPA 900 yards and closing. The number sits on the screen with quiet weight. The destroyer systems stay exactly where they belong. No alarms, no sirens, just controlled readiness. The 5-inch mount remains trained slightly off-axis. The electronic warfare suite listens without responding. Cameras continue rolling, frame after frame, preserving every second. This is where professionalism matters most. The opposing ship edges closer along the destroyer's starboard side. Parallel now, but slightly ahead. A classic pressure position, close enough to be felt, not close enough to make contact. Not yet. Parallel course established, CIC says. The captain lets out one slow breath. Maintain. From the bridge wing, the wind carries engine noise across the gap. Officers can see crew on the other deck now, faces turned in their direction, hands on rails, no weapons visibly manned, no signs of distress, just steel, speed, and distance collapsing to almost nothing. The destroyer's helicopter blades begin to turn, not fast, not loud, just visible. A signal without a statement, a reminder that the ship is not as isolated as it may appear. The opposing vessel answers by holding speed. At this distance, every small action becomes obvious. A degree of rudder, a slight change in RPM. Nothing is hidden. The log fills line by line. Contact maintaining parallel intercept, active radar emissions continuing. No response to repeated hails. On the bridge, the captain speaks again at last. Prepare the helo. There is no urgency in his voice, no strain. Just procedure unfolding exactly as it should. The next step on the ladder, the destroyer does not maneuver to open space. That would surrender the geometry. Instead, she holds course and builds the record. For a Navy warship under pressure, the answer has always been the same. Clarity. Another radar sweep hits, stronger this time, still not fire control, still below the line, but closer. EW concurs, still search mode. CIC confirms. That distinction matters. It means there is still room left. Still a path that does not lead somewhere worse. But that space is getting smaller. The opposing ship slips a fraction closer. The gap narrows to under 600 yards. The water between the hulls churns differently now. Currents colliding, wakes interfering. You can feel it through the deck plates. This is the kind of moment people later blame on the sea, even when the sea had nothing to do with it. The destroyer's helm does not move. Her course line stays clean and true. The message could not be clearer. We are not the variable. Then comes another adjustment. Small, but unmistakable. The other ship presses inward, bow inching toward the destroyer's forward quarter. That movement answers the last open question. This is not an error. This is a test. The captain gives a single nod. Launch the helo. And the situation moves into its next phase. At 5:31 local time, the helicopter lifts cleanly from the deck, nose slightly down, rotors cutting into the calm morning air. No rush, no spectacle, just precise execution. From the bridge, the aircraft slides forward and settles into a low orbit over the water between the two ships. This isn't escalation, it's clarification. Inside the Combat Information Center, a second tactical picture comes alive, merging air and surface tracks into a single, precise view. The helicopter is now feeding live video back to the ship, thermal, optical, stabilized. Every frame is time-coded, geo-referenced, and archived, a complete visual record. The opposing vessel is now fully clear on screen. Gray hull, sharp bow, crew visible on the forward deck. No flag raised, no maneuvering signals, speed holding steady, heading unchanged. Aircraft on station, the air boss reports. The destroyer remains locked on course, 30 knots of steel and discipline. The helicopter drops to 200 feet above the water, pacing the other ship just off its bow, close enough to be unmistakable, distant enough to remain professional. On the opposing bridge, heads tilt upward, binoculars rise, movement spreads across the deck. It is the first visible reaction since initial contact. The helicopter holds its orbit. Inside the cockpit, the crew runs through its checks from pure repetition. Cameras active, communications open, targeting light ready, not a strike tool, not a threat, a signal. Then the beam comes alive. A narrow green line cuts across the space between aircraft and ship, settling directly onto the opposing bridge windows. Not blinding, not harmful, impossible to miss. At the same moment, the radio transmission goes out on maritime frequency. Calm, controlled, unmistakably official. Unidentified naval vessel, this is a United States Navy aircraft. You are operating in an unsafe manner. Alter course immediately. The message is repeated in Mandarin. Silence comes back over the radio, but the reaction is immediate. On the opposing deck, crew members step back from the rail. One points upward, another moves aft toward the superstructure. The ship maintains speed, but its posture has changed. The certainty is gone. Laser on target, the helicopter crew confirms. Back aboard the destroyer, the captain watches the live feed without comment. This is the line, held without force, drawn without shouting. The opposing ship's radar sweeps again, this time briefly brushing the helicopter. Logged, saved, still not a fire control track. Still restraint, though thinner now than before. Opposing vessel painting aircraft, CIC reports. The helicopter widens its orbit slightly, a professional courtesy. There is no need to move closer. The message has already been delivered. Now comes the decision. The water between the hulls twists as the wakes collide. At this distance, even the smallest adjustment matters. The destroyer does not move. The helicopter holds altitude. The only remaining variable is the other ship. A few more seconds pass. Then the picture changes. Not dramatically, not all at once, but clearly. Contact reducing speed, CIC calls. 28 knots drops to 24, then 22. The bow wave shortens, the hard cut through the water begins to soften. The ship starts to drift outward, 1 degree, then 2, just enough to open the geometry. The helicopter keeps the green beam steady and the orbit smooth. No triumph, no chase. Pressure without humiliation. Another transmission goes out. Same wording, same tone. This time, a response crackles back. Brief, clipped, difficult to make out. An acknowledgement, if not an admission. The opposing ship continues bleeding speed. 19 knots, 18. The gap opens to 800 yards, then 1,000. On the destroyer's bridge, the risk curve begins to flatten. Still, no one moves. No one relaxes. An event like this is not over until the numbers say it is over. The helicopter completes one more circuit. Cameras still recording, green beam still visible, every second captured, every movement preserved. Contact altering course to starboard, CIC confirms. CPA increasing. That is the moment. Not retreat, not surrender, just compliance. The helicopter climbs to 500 feet and pulls the beam. The green line disappears. The pressure eases. The aircraft shifts from deterrence to observation, sliding aft to keep the ship in view without crowding it. On the opposing deck, sailors lower their arms, movement returns to normal. The vessel settles onto a non-intercept course. The destroyer holds steady. No horn, no warning shot, no dramatic announcement, just more water opening between two steel hulls. At 540, the helicopter turns back toward the destroyer, maintaining visual contact until the range passes 2 nautical miles. Only then does the bridge mark the phase complete. Non-lethal measure effective, the air boss reports. The captain gives a single nod. Recover the helo. As the aircraft settles back onto the deck and the rotors begin to slow, the sea returns to the same calm it had before. But the log now carries something more lasting than fading wake patterns. It leaves behind proof. And once that proof is secured, the encounter begins its final phase. At 5:43 local time, the helicopter is locked down on deck, its blades folding back into silence. Ahead, the destroyer's course line remains perfectly steady, a clean wake stretching straight behind her. On radar, the opposing ship now sits off the starboard quarter, the distance opening little by little, with clear intent. This is the stage where discipline matters most. Inside the Combat Information Center, the track history now tells the full story one frame at a time. Speed reduction confirmed, heading change verified, closest point of approach expanding back into safe water. The intercept pattern has fallen apart, not because of force, but because one side decided not to push any farther. Contact no longer maneuvering to intercept, CIC reports. The captain studies the display in silence. There is nothing left to add. The choice has already been made, just not by him. The opposing ship steadies at 19 knots and settles onto a parallel course that no longer presents immediate danger. The water between the hulls opens back into sea room. Wakes separate. Hydrodynamic pressure eases away. The immediate risk has passed, but the watch does not loosen. Professional caution does not end with relief. Maintain tracking, the captain says quietly. Long-range optics remain fixed. Passive sensors stay active. The destroyer does not ease its posture until distance makes intent irrelevant. That is the standard. That is how tense moments are kept from becoming something worse. On the bridge wing, sailors continue watching the other vessel as it slides farther aft. The details are still visible. The angle of the bow, the freer movement of the crew, the lack of urgency in their steps. The strain that defined the earlier minutes has drained from the scene. In CIC, the electronic warfare officer scrolls back through the emissions log. Every radar sweep, every frequency shift, every unanswered hail. The record is clean, the sequence is complete. Nothing is missing. Recommend we hold until 5 miles, the watch officer says. The captain gives a small nod. The destroyer continues straight ahead, unmoved by the ship falling behind. There is no need to chase separation. Separation is already happening. At 3 nautical miles, the opposing vessel makes one final, unmistakable correction. Rudder over, heading away from the destroyer's track. No ambiguity, no subtlety. A clear decision to disengage. Contact turning away, CIC confirms. The bridge remains quiet. No one marks the moment out loud. This is not triumph, it is resolution. The destroyer's systems remain active, cameras continue recording. The log keeps building, even de-escalation gets documented. At 5 miles, the opposing ship's radar activity drops off to intermittent passive behavior only. No further sweeps, the posture has shifted completely from pressure to observation. For the first time in several minutes, the captain looks out toward the horizon. Secure from immediate posture, he says. Maintain watch. Condition 3 remains in place. Readiness does not disappear just because the tension has eased. Readiness is not a reaction. It is the baseline. Below decks, sailors return to routine without ceremony. Doors stay dogged. Helm orders remain steady. The destroyer moves forward as though nothing unusual happened. That is the point. At sea, the most dangerous moments are often the quiet ones. The moments when assumption begins to replace attention. Naval training is built to leave no room for that. At 7 miles, the opposing ship fades from visual range. On radar, its track thins out and begins to blend back into the larger picture. Just another contact among many, no longer the center of the board. Recommend we close the event? CIC asks. The captain studies the display one final time. Event remains open until horizon, he replies. The record will close when distance removes uncertainty. Not sooner. Minutes pass. The sea settles fully back into calm. Sunlight flashes across steel and water alike. From the outside, there is nothing to suggest that 2 warships were on the edge of a serious incident less than half an hour earlier. But inside the ship, every second now exists in data. At 12 nautical miles, the opposing vessel's track merges back into normal traffic behavior. No unusual maneuvering, no emissions of note. No renewed pressure. Event complete, CIC confirms. The captain nods once. Close the log. Out here, that is what matters most. The line between a tense encounter and a disaster is not firepower. It is command. At 6:15 local time, the sea looks exactly as it did an hour earlier. Flat, blue, endless. But inside the destroyer, the difference is lasting. In the Combat Information Center, the event log is being finalized one entry at a time. Bearings, speeds, emissions, course shifts, audio from bridge-to-bridge calls, high-resolution imagery from the helicopter, targeting light timestamps, radar signatures. Every piece is aligned into one continuous timeline. This is how these moments end aboard a U.S. Navy ship. Not with declarations, but with documentation. The opposing vessel made its choice the moment it closed the distance at speed. It likely assumed pressure at close range would create leverage. Instead, it created clarity, and clarity leaves a trail. The destroyer never changed course, never changed tone, never moved beyond established posture. That restraint was not passive. It was intentional, procedural, and fully recorded. That is where the miscalculation becomes obvious. At sea, pressure only works if it forces the other side to react. Here, it did not. The destroyer held steady and let the geometry tell the story. When the helicopter launched, it did not intensify the situation. It clarified it. The instant the green beam settled on the opposing bridge, the situation stopped being open to interpretation. From that point on, every decision belonged to the other ship. Slow down or accept the consequences of closing further. Change course or own the choice not to. Break away or leave a complete record of doing otherwise. There was no favorable outcome left in that exchange. The destroyer's crew understood it, the captain understood it, and eventually the other bridge understood it too. By the time the distance opened beyond 5 nautical miles, the result was already set. Not in a tactical sense, but in an analytical one. The opposing vessel had not forced a withdrawal. It had created a file. Inside the ship's secure spaces, analysts begin sorting through the data. Radar signatures are clean, emissions are consistent, maneuvering patterns are unmistakable. What may have looked like pressure on the surface becomes something far more precise under review. Documented intent. And once intent is documented, leverage disappears. This is the part that rarely becomes public. No dramatic impact, no warning shots, no last-second spectacle. But to professionals, this is the decisive part. Every close approach reveals something about training, command climate, limits, and judgment. Here, the lesson is straightforward. You do not pressure a U.S. Navy destroyer at close range and remain unseen. The ship continues its transit without ceremony, helm steady, speed unchanged. The horizon ahead is still the mission. The encounter slips into the past, but the record does not. For the crew, it becomes another piece of experience. Not extraordinary, not routine, just exact. Sailors rotate watch. Systems continue to hum. The ocean offers no reaction. But somewhere else, that log will be reviewed frame by frame. The early acceleration, the unanswered calls, the narrowing closest approach, the moment the green beam appeared, the speed reduction, the turn away. The sequence requires no dramatic explanation, it speaks for itself. That is why this was such a serious mistake. Not because it nearly turned violent, but because it never had to. The opposing vessel exposed its own posture without gaining anything in return. No advantage, no concession, no control of the narrative, only visibility. At sea, the strongest response is not always force. Sometimes it is patience backed by sensors, procedure, and discipline. The destroyer never tried to dominate the moment. It simply refused to give it away. By holding course, the ship held authority. By documenting everything, it kept the final word. The ocean closes behind both wakes. The distance grows. To the naked eye, the moment ends without spectacle and without visible aftermath. But the balance has already shifted. Because the next time ships meet at close range and the margins begin to narrow, this record will still exist. Quiet, complete, and impossible to argue with. And out here, where steel and water settle questions faster than politics ever will, that kind of record lasts longer than any display of strength.